on track. And I'll just go ahead and welcome everyone who might be watching this at a later date. Sorry, we forgot to record right away, but we're recording now. Thank you for joining the Hunger Coalition's annual meeting for 2023. So I wanted to kind of just give a brief overview of the current state of hunger and food insecurity in Iowa, and then we'll have some time with small groups to talk amongst yourselves about what you are seeing in your community. But right now we know that there are food banks, food pantries, and other anti-hunger organizations across the state that are assisting record-breaking numbers of Iowans. Here at DMARC, we had our second busiest month of all time in June. July, there's a chance we could break our November record, which would just kind of be staggering and a big alarm. I know other food banks and pantries I've talked with are seeing the exact same thing. And this is one thing that we're able to do as a coalition is talk with people from across the state and say, like, are you guys seeing the same thing we are? But universally, I think that's what we're seeing in the state of Iowa. Costs for food and transportation remain high for both consumers and organizations. So the people that we're assisting, we're seeing a lot more of. And for food banks and pantries and other organizations, we're spending a lot more to be able to provide that food. Amidst all of this, SNAP enrollment in Iowa is currently at a 15-year low. It's the lowest it's been since July 2008. And recent federal and state legislation, we think will make it even more difficult to access SNAP. If you've been following along with us this past legislative session, you know there was a bill that was passed and signed into law, Senate File 494, that will establish an asset test for SNAP, among other changes to eligibility verifications. And then we saw a debt ceiling bill that expanded the age that people are subject to work requirements. So now people age 50 to 55 are subject to work requirements for SNAP. We know that these policies are not based in evidence. We also know that they're going to remove people from SNAP, and our food pantries, our food banks, other anti-hunger organizations are going to see more and more people turning to us for support. So I don't want to be a complete downer, but that's where we're at. Right now, we're going to break out into small groups for about 15 minutes. For those of you joining online, John will be getting breakout rooms set up in just a minute here, and we will go out into those. For those of you who are here in person, ask that you maybe turn to like get in groups of 3 or 4 people. And we want to talk about what are you seeing in your community right now? What are you hearing from your friends and neighbors? What are you hearing about from people you work with at food pantries and food banks? And what are some maybe more positive, cool things that you are doing to rise and meet this? So, John, are you ready to go with the breakout rooms online? Yes. Okay, so John's going to open those up. We will all break up in this room, and we will be back here at 2 o'clock. So, all right. I hope you had some great discussions. I neglected to tell you ahead of time that we were going to ask for people to share back with the large group. So hopefully you can kind of figure out, maybe you probably didn't assign someone from your group, but if there's anyone who would like to share, maybe we'll start with folks online. And if you just want to like unmute yourself or raise your hand, I'm going to stop screen sharing so that all of us in the room can see you all. And if there's anyone in the room who would like to share, I will just ask that you come up to the front here so that people online can hear you and see you. So do we have anyone online who wants to share anything that their group discussed? What about in person? Anyone want to volunteer? Kayla, I just saw your video come on. That means you're going to talk, right?
I knew it. I knew it. Yeah. I will go ahead and share. So, we talked about just seeing what everyone else is seeing as far as really big increases and struggles to maintain food supply, but also just, the need going up significantly. We talked a lot about schools and access to food pantries in schools. I didn't realize Des Moines had a new requirement about on-site school pantries and just trying to ensure that kiddos get meals during the summertime. And I just kind of shared in Johnson County how many food pantries are starting their own meal programs during the summertime. And then also in Waterloo, there's some programs going on as well to just make sure that we're not missing those summertime meals. And then we talked a little bit about the increased presence of double up food bucks at local farmers markets and different markets, and how great that's been to see folks utilizing that as a resource.
Thank you, Kayla. Debbie, are you going to share?
Sure, yeah. Natasha and I talked about kind of the same thing. We're all seeing the same things, the same need in our communities, and how that doesn't really mesh with the response from our government. Unfortunately, we're seeing cuts in staff. We're seeing a lot of things that are really kind of just kind of don't line up with what we're seeing on the ground, and feeling like we're not really being listened to. So there's that. Again, really uplifting information to share, but we're all feeling it.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. Anyone else from the online group want to share what their small group discussed? Anyone from the room want to step up and share with everyone what you talked about? Yeah. So do you want to come up just so folks online can see you? Yeah, I'm going to put you right in front of the camera. And maybe you can introduce yourself quick. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, Zachary Cassidy, Sustainable Iowa Land Trust. I think we talked initially about just the issues that people who might qualify for certain programs have with just the legalese, or who get kicked off of, for example, SNAP benefits because they make $150 too much, per year, things like that, of that nature. And then we got into some food systems issues with just how hard it is to be a farmer and to produce anything other than corn and beans. And so we're a state that grows so much, but 90% of our food comes from out of state or even out of country. And there's no reason that, that we can't be producing the majority of our own table food. And then also the issue that, farmers who want to do something non-traditional outside of corn and beans face in terms of if they're beginning farmers getting land, how land is very, very expensive, and to get loans or financing for something non-traditional like that is very difficult in itself. Farmers who are leasing land, for example, from municipalities, are at risk of getting kicked off of the land. And then how, it would be great if there was more markets connecting growers to consumers, because that's an issue too. It doesn't matter how great you are at growing your lettuce if you can't sell it anymore. And so, we mentioned mobile farmers markets might be something that takes care of a lot of these issues. Like, it takes care of people, who have disabilities and want to be able to access, healthy foods. It provides a market for growers to get directly to consumers. So that, yeah, that was sort of what we talked about. Yeah. I did not prepare for this speech at all. So if I sucked, I'm sorry, but yeah, that's my thing.
No, thank you. And I think your group brought up some really great food system stuff. And when we're talking about brainstorming policy ideas, that's one of the areas that we're going to be looking at. So
I'm a land trust.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Do a little bit. Okay, Dan, thank you.
What we sort of concentrated on, one was trying to recover food that's going into landfills that could otherwise feed the needy. That's one reason I'm involved in this organization. And we talked about some different things, but one thing, unfortunately, we came to the conclusion of, well, we didn't come to the conclusion, it is fact that Iowa policy and regulation are not up to the concept of using food as a resource to feed people in need instead of just throwing it in the trash. There's legislation that's been on the books for decades that make it a barrier. Luckily, though, we did identify, our group talked about policy from the state level, and legislation may not be changing, but attitudes and practices from the general public are. More people know about trying to reduce food waste. Schools are getting on board, but our group did comment and identify the issue that unfortunately there's no consistency. One school district will be great, and then another school district won't, because they say food health issues and liability makes us not able to do it, which is not true. So, and then we also just basically talked about how there's such a higher demand in the pantries, which we all know about. So,
Thanks, Dan. Look, there's a comment from Laura Esper in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, so Laura in the chat said, colleagues in the chat eloquently spoke to the enormous need, and then also briefly about the focus from legislators on perceived fraud. And that's, yes, that is something we heard during the legislative session that the facts don't really align with. Anyone else? I don't want to belabor this, but I want to give everyone an opportunity to speak if they would like to. Going once, twice. All right. Well, we will move on. I'm going to share my screen again. And next, we are going to do some sweet and spicy feedback for IHC. So we're going to spend 15 minutes just working on this independently. We are not going to do a large group share out. This is really just for us as the board to understand, you know, what IHC does well, which is the sweet, and where we need to improve. And we don't want you to hold back. That's why we called it spicy. Like, we really want to hear where we could do better, so we know how we can improve. So we're going to work independently for 15 minutes. For those of you who are joining online, there is a Jamboard that John is going to be sharing in the chat. You can just click on the left side of the screen to add a sticky note if you're not familiar with that. John, maybe you could provide some guidance too for those people joining online. For those of you joining in person, you'll see we have some sticky notes out in front of you. The color of the sticky note does not matter. We just have multicolored sticky notes. Up front here, we have one that says, what does IHC do well? Sweet. In the back corner there, we have what could IHC do better, or spicy. If you see one that you agree with and don't feel like you need to write your own, we do have some stickers. Again, color doesn't matter. So if you see one there, you just kind of want to give it a +1, take a sticker, add it next to that sticky note. For those of you joining online, there's some little green diamonds in the Jamboard. You can just drag one of those over. But yeah, we are going to take some time to work independently for 15 minutes. We will meet back as a group at 2:20, let's say 2:25. So you've got 14 minutes. Yeah, John's going to share that Jamboard link in the chat. He probably already did. So yes, we'll regroup in 14 minutes. All right, well, it is 2:20, so finish up any final thoughts. We are going to regroup here, and we're not going to do a large group share out, but really appreciate everyone sharing your feedback with us. We'll be compiling this and discussing it at our next board meeting. We also did a membership survey earlier this year. So some of this we have already, but also wanted to make sure we were including this as part of our annual meeting in case you did not have the opportunity through that survey to provide feedback. So, all right, now for the main event. We are going to be brainstorming our policy priorities for 2024. And we want your help. You know, part of the Hunger Coalition is all of us working together, whether you are a dues paying member or not, we want your participation in helping us determine what we are going to have as our policy priorities for the 2024 legislative session. We're going to focus on 4 questions, but if you have any ideas that fall outside the scope of these, please just add a sticky note to the big stickies or the slides on the Jamboard, wherever you think it most closely fits. So our 4 questions are: how can we improve SNAP? How can we improve other nutrition programs like WIC or school meals? How can we build more equitable food systems in Iowa? And how can we address the root causes of hunger and food insecurity? So again, we're going to have some independent work time for about 20 minutes. For those of you in the room, I'll be moving some of these stickies over to the other boards. We'll have 2 stickies for each of these since these are kind of small. Again, on the Jamboard, you can just advance to the next slides. And there's 4 different slides for the different policy areas. John will add more slides if we run out of room there. But we're going to work independently for 20 minutes. Then we're going to kind of do a large group share out. And then at the end of that, we're each individually going to vote on our top 3 that we would like to see the Hunger Coalition focus on. I will also say, try to think of maybe state level policies. But if you have some that kind of fall outside of that, you're still welcome to share that. Just as an organization, we tend to spend most of our time at the state level. So just know that going into this. So we are going to, I'll give everyone 23 minutes and we will come back at 2:45. I'm going to move some of these stickies around in the room. John's happy to help with anything for the online participants for the Jamboard. And feel free to ask, him questions in the chat, one of the board members here in the room, if you have any questions, but we'll go ahead and get started. All right, we are going to regroup now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Now we're just going to kind of do a large group share out, especially with this hybrid format, having kind of work being done in 2 separate locations. We want to make sure that everyone sees all of those ideas. So how we're going to do this is I am going to share the in-person ones first, kind of by those 4 sections. And then we'll go over to the Jamboard and wait, no, we're doing the Jamboard first. Yes. And then we will kind of fill in with any that might be missing from the sticky notes here. So actually, I'm going to go back and share my screen to bring up the Jamboard so everyone here can see it. Sorry. So first up, how can we improve SNAP? Some ideas here: loosen requirements to access benefits, lessen barriers. Thank you for whoever is grouping those together. Increase eligibility to 180 to 200% FPL. Currently in the state, it's 160. Push back against work requirements expansion. Keep administration of SNAP in state. Better translated and more accessible materials. Increasing income limits and changing the requirements for those who might receive more pay in one season compared to another. Increase the number of certified SNAP farmers. Encourage small farmers through partnerships with other orgs, most likely, to navigate the pathway to accept SNAP. And then we just have increased funding. And Matthew, could you grab that and bring it up to me, just the whole thing? Yep. And then John is going to add anything that might be missing. I don't know if you'll be able to even see this screen, but this is how I'm gonna do it. Can we interview / document stories of people who get kicked off SNAP because of Senate File 494? Show the very real impact of recent legislation. Then we have eliminate the asset test that was just imposed with Senate File 494. Another raise income eligibility to 200%. State funding for double up food bucks. Investment in, and let me know if I'm going too fast, John. Investment in outreach strategies, especially toward rural Iowans and seniors. Increase the minimum benefit amount. Remove application barriers for SNAP. More access and appropriations for double up food bucks. Less difficult enrollment process. And since that seems unlikely, more trained, accessible people statewide to help users navigate the process. Can we focus on policy to make the application process easier and to make eligibility well known? Lots of folks in our community who qualify for SNAP don't know it. Increase the benefit amount, make the application process easier. Do we have enough farmers and producers talking about how SNAP benefits them? Expansion of healthy food incentive based programs, for example, double up food bucks and produce prescription programs. Increase the minimum benefit of SNAP to $50. Dedicated agents to assist those who are unable to enroll themselves if they are illiterate or have no internet access or are experiencing homelessness. So, a lot of great ideas there on how we can improve SNAP. All right, so next we're looking at how can we improve other nutrition programs. Start with finding areas for people to be able to have a small plot of land so that they can rent for a small fee each month that they use to start their own gardens. Clearer guidance for SNAP participants to utilize double up food bucks. Continue to fund LFPA and LFS. For those of you who don't know those acronyms, that's the Local Food Purchasing Agreement and Local Food for Schools programs. Fund healthy school meals for all, aka universal school breakfast and lunch in Iowa. Federal Farm Bill level, more money for TFAP foods. Marketing for programs, state funding for LFPA through 2027. More rural and independently owned grocery stores and farmers markets participating in nutrition incentive programs like Double Up Food Bucks and WIC. Increase access to food preparation, budgeting, and nutritious programming for underserved communities. More summer meal sites. Fund or create home delivery options for those who are homebound or don't have transportation. Double Up Food Bucks translated into multiple languages with videos on how to use the program. Right to Food constitutional amendment. And this is the only one for this, right? So I'm gonna grab in person. And we've got universal school meals, incentives, and sustainable funding for institutional local food purchasing. Locating more resources to reserve more food something about restaurants. Better technology for farmers market nutrition programs. Getting more volunteers to collect food from establishments. Promote and grow programs like Veggie RX or Veggie prescription programs, Double Up Food Bucks, senior farmers market checks, healthy school meals for all, also known as universal school meals, free school lunches, ensure Iowa participates in summer EBT and provides funding for admin support, senior nutrition program flexibilities, food rescue liability, taking food home, WIC, possible decrease in funding for fiscal year 24, possible waiting list for WIC. And then advocate with legislators the importance of WIC on child development. Another right to food constitutional amendment. Summer meals, we do not have enough meal sites for kids, especially in rural areas. How to get meal costs covered is one challenge. Could we advocate for more expansive regulations on where meal sites can be located to get reimbursement? Involving community feedback in nutrition programs, any incentives to encourage grocery stores to donate more? Have we fully explored what burdensome regulations stand in the way of more robust food rescue efforts? Access to more choices and make SNAP enrollment more accessible to those at or below 200% of the poverty level. Again, a lot of great ideas. Does someone else want to come up here and do? I feel like I'm just talking at you all. Okay.
We had one comment from Cindy saying she had a hard time hearing, so maybe.
Okay. Yes, I will be closer and I will not wander off. I'm sorry. So the next one is, how can we build more equitable food systems? Coalition building, emphasizing food as a right that should be guaranteed to all Iowans, celebrating and showcasing diverse cultural food traditions, more local products and grocery stores that are available to more than just the folks who have the time and transportation to get to farmers markets, more space for culturally relevant foods, both growing and in pantries, getting the community involved in their food, whether that be through community farms or increase in farmers markets, collaboration between vendors, suppliers, producers, purchasers, land access. Cities, counties, and the state need to proactively set land aside for farming and gardening. This includes water infrastructure. Invest in local food infrastructure and value chain coordination to build a viable alternative model. Center voices of people experiencing food insecurity. The many faces of food insecurity in Iowa, including local farmers. Continue to fund LFPA and LFS. Incentivize local food system solutions. Universal free school meals, and they just passed in Michigan. Climate change, invest in local climate-friendly agricultural producers and distributors. Small scale orgs and businesses who were able to fill in gaps during the pandemic. Let me grab ours. So we've got another free school lunches. I'm seeing this in a lot of different categories, and I think it falls into all these categories. Support for small and mid-sized farmers to scale up operations and increase demand for local foods through institutional purchasing. Increase public education on food waste and food insecurity. More equitable markets. Cost share support for local food and value chain coordinators. Not a policy suggestion per se, but can we ensure we are listening to and vetting our policy priorities with lots of populations, BIPOC, LGBTQ+, ELL, etc. Good inclusive recommendations. I love that one. Enhance small scale and sustainable farming. Support small scale farmers by providing access to land, resources, and training. Change policy to make it easier to donate food in Iowa. Infrastructure funding for vegetable processing. Incentives for grocers and businesses to buy from small farms with diverse products. Recognize that different is acceptable and beautiful. Incentivizing Iowa farms and diversity crops, or incentivizing Iowa farms to diversify crops. Better knowledge for CSA summers about what is out there. I might have gotten that wrong, I'm sorry. Better public transportation, walkability to markets. Make all produce eligible for double up food bucks regardless of the form of payment, and senior farmers market checks. encourage a barter system and food swap, educating people on the different diet and cuisines that exist within our community. Then we can push for more equitable policy and sustainable funding for LFPA and LFS programs. So again, I think that's one we've seen across a couple too. All right, we're almost done. I'm sorry, everyone. How can we address the root causes of hunger? Continue to tell real stories of people experiencing food insecurity, share stories. People need to see the relevancy of the issue. Continue to frame hunger as a result of income inequality. Explain how budgets work, a la Representative Katie Porter. Bringing to light what food brands corporations own and advocating for people to buy brands locally or from family-run businesses. Yes, frame people over XYZ corporations. Traveling listening posts held in various communities throughout Iowa, inviting legislators to come hear the experiences of those with lived experience. We'll get to that in a second. I'm excited about that one. Acknowledge that hunger is a symptom of larger issues such as affordable housing and livable wages. Hunger will not be solved until we address the weightier issues. Systemic racism. Talk about how food insecurity is codified by race. We also need to look within and ask if the work we are doing to alleviate hunger contributes to the issue. I'm very intrigued by that one and want to talk to whoever wrote that one. Form partnerships with organizations working on housing access, healthcare, labor unions, worker justice, minimum wage, etc. All right, for our in-person notes, we've got affordable housing and healthcare, the eviction expungement bill, advocacy for increased minimum wage / jobs that pay a living wage, increase awareness of housing costs and lack of affordable housing, root causes, living wage policy is important. Alice, that's the asset limited income constrained. I'm getting this wrong. United Way does a cost of living report. Alice research is one useful tool that can help us understand needs by zip code, census tract, county, etc. Universal basic income. Minority impact statements required for all appropriation bills. Make all doctors eligible for prescribing certain foods. Make prescribed foods covered by insurance. Incentives for doctors who prescribe food as medicine over like pharmaceuticals. Start local, identify similarity in order to advocate for better policy across the state. Insurance funded food programs and assistance. Raise the minimum wage. And review routine healthcare prevention practices and intervention. All right, so we've got a lot of great ideas here, and now it's time for the hard part of figuring out how we narrow this down. Because while I would love for the Hunger Coalition to be engaged in all of this, we recognize that we have a limited capacity. And as we continue to grow our network, we will get more capacity, more voices. So now what we're going to do, both in person and online, I had it as top 3 priorities, but that seems really hard. Let's do top 5. Can we meet in the middle? Top 5. That's not to say if you don't select one, it's not going to be included in our final advocacy agenda. What this will do is really help us narrow the focus. And then one of the perks of being a paid member is this will go out to our paid members who will then rank where these priorities should lie where we should be spending most of our energy. But again, we want to have everyone involved in the brainstorming process. So can we agree on voting on our top 5? And some of these are kind of similar. So John, I think, has been kind of combining things, or someone has been. Thank you for whoever's doing that. For those of you in person, some of these are just on the Jamboard. So if you don't have a laptop here, you're welcome to come up to this computer and just choose your 5 and we can kind of rotate. But we're going to spend the next, we're ahead of schedule. So we'll say the next 10 minutes. If we need to spend a little longer, that's fine. I don't think it'll take us longer than 10 minutes to choose our top 5 priority areas for the 2024 legislative agenda. So again, if you're on the Jamboard, you can use those little green diamonds. If we run out, you can copy paste those. If you're here in person, we've got some colored stickers. The color doesn't matter. And you'll each get 5 and we will spend some time to rank those. So, all right, we'll see you back at 3:06. All right, we are ready to reconvene. Feel free to, we'll send that Jamboard link out. Also in the post-event survey, there is a part where you can add any other policy ideas you think of. So it's not like you missed your one opportunity today. We'll have further ways that you can provide ideas. If you think of something on the drive home or something like that, you'll be able to provide feedback on that. We're not going to do another share out with how things are ranked, but we will follow up with that information. And like I said, kind of next step in the process, this is our first step, generating these ideas, kind of narrowing them. Now we will compile these all together with the Jamboard and the paper ones to kind of see where we need to focus. And then there will be kind of a survey that goes out to our paid members to rank our top policy priorities. And then from there, our policy subcommittee or our policy committee will take that, kind of draft the actual language for our advocacy agenda, and then that goes to our board for final approval. So that's kind of the process. And then obviously, once we have that final legislative agenda, we'll probably unveil that in one of our monthly meetings. Yes, and that's what our contract lobbyist is that's their guiding document. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so hopefully you can all get out a little bit early. But we do want to talk about what's next for the Hunger Coalition. So we've got a few things kind of in the works that we want to make everyone aware of. First, we have formed a Senate File 494 implementation working group. And this group really has 3 goals. One is to kind of monitor the implementation of this, perform any administrative advocacy where we can, trying to lessen the negative impacts that we expect to see from the bill. The second area of focus is education, making sure that people on SNAP are aware of the coming changes, also gathering stories from people about how those changes are impacting their lives. And third is data collection. So with those stories, we're also trying to gather that data so we can go back to the state and say, look, exactly what we warned about has happened. So we've kind of got a number of things happening there. I know at DMARC, we're working with some professors at Drake University to do some kind of qualitative and quantitative data collection to try and measure the impact of Senate File 494. I know the food banks across the state are gathering some information just about the number of people on SNAP that they see to see if there's any changes when that does go into effect. But we really want to make sure, just because this bill was passed and signed into law does not mean it's over for us. We are going to be working to make sure that the negative impacts are lessened and lay the groundwork for undoing this law. Next up, we've got some plans in the works for some community roundtables on hunger and food insecurity across the state this fall. We are hoping to host one in each congressional district in the state, so at least 4 of them. Right now, we're looking at Poweshiek County, which is Grinnell. We're looking up at Blackhawk County, Cedar Falls, Waterloo. We're looking kind of Northwest Iowa, possibly Spencer. And then we're also looking down in Southwest Iowa, Montgomery County, maybe Red Oak or somewhere down there, maybe Sheraton too. So when we have more details to share on those, we will be sure to let you all know. And really the goals of those roundtables are to hear directly from people with lived experience, from social service providers about what they are seeing in their communities. And we also want to invite elected officials to attend those as well, whether it's mayor, city council, county supervisors, state legislators. If we can get any of our federal representation to attend those as well, not to put them up on a stage and have them talk to people, but to participate in those roundtables just like anyone else and hear directly from their constituents what people are seeing in their communities. So more on that soon. We also, through some of the surveying work we did, really realized that we need to be providing more education and training opportunities for our advocates. So that's something we plan on integrating into our monthly meetings, just providing people with more, education on SNAP policy, on the legislative process, on ways that they can take action that are not emailing their legislators. And then we're also trying to make it easier for advocates to take action. We recognize that like our email action alerts are not the most accessible because it's, hey, here's this bad thing. Now look up who your legislator is and send them an email or call. So we're exploring options to make it easier for advocates to just click, yes, I want to take action and automatically send an email to their representatives. So these are some plans that we're going to be working off in the quote unquote legislative off season. And we hope that this will really help build our power, build the reach of our coalition so that next legislative session will be ready to go. And obviously we'll also be developing our policy agenda too. So before we conclude, I just wanted to share a few ways to stay engaged with the Iowa Hunger Coalition. Easiest thing you can do is sign up for our email newsletter. If you go to iowahungercoalition.org, there should be a little pop-up box asking if you want to join. That is the best way to stay updated with IHC. You can also follow us on Facebook. It's the only platform we're on. I'm sorry. If someone wants to join our communications committee and get us involved in some other social media channels, that's an opportunity. We have our monthly meetups every 3rd Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. So again, if you sign up for that email newsletter, you will, get the information on those. And I want to let everyone know we do have 3 committees that are fairly inactive that we're trying to get more activated. We have a communications committee, a membership and outreach committee, and a policy committee. And you do not need to be a dues paying member to get involved in those. Those typically meet once per month, just over Zoom. So if you are interested in any of those, please reach out to us. Our email is iowahungercoalition@gmail.com. We'd be happy to plug you in to the lead of each of those committees and make sure that you're getting the meeting times for those. Finally, just one more pitch to become a dues paying member of the Hunger Coalition. Whatever you can give. Like Dan said, we've got some individual members giving $5 a year. Our top organizational member gives $1,800 a year. It's really whatever works for your budget. We do have suggested amounts. So for individuals, that's $50 a year. For organizations, I think it's $100 for every $100,000 in organizational budgets. It's basically 0.1% of your organization's budget. Again, that's just a guideline. You can give whatever makes sense to you.
And you can always raise it.
Yes, and Dan says you can always raise your membership and increase it over time. And we've had some members do that, and we really appreciate people stepping up their support. The more members we have, the more work we'll be able to do, the more we'll be able to explore different strategies and things like that. I'm sure, you know, as Dan shared, our budget is not huge, but so we work with what we have. And if we have more, we can do more. So that will be the final time you'll hear me say that today. Lastly, I just want to thank all of you, not just for being here today, but for all the work that you've put in over the past year. I know it was not an easy one. It feels like every year there's more attacks on SNAP. Fingers crossed that since they passed Senate File 494, they'll take a year off, but I'm not taking that for granted. I think that would be naive. But just want to thank each and every one of you for calling legislators, sending emails, showing up at subcommittee meetings, sharing things on social, telling your friends and neighbors. All of that does make a difference. I know it can oftentimes seem like just an impossible task to change policy and to advocate for policies that will affect the lives of Iowans. But if we come together as people, as organizations, and make demands of our government, they work for us. And I think just like being in a group can be really inspiring. I think back to the press conference we held, demanding Governor Reynolds to veto Senate File 494. And that was just like, despite the really bad circumstances, I felt really good that day being surrounded by people who cared about this issue and were willing to step up, speak out, and not take that as an answer to say, no, we want you to veto this. And every time we do that, we show our power and we build power and we get more people involved in the work. So my heartfelt thanks goes out to each and every one of you. And that's our annual meeting. So thank you all for joining. Like I said, we'll be sending out a post-event survey. We will have a recording of this that we can share with anyone who was not able to join today, which we can also partial recording. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to record at the start. You didn't miss much. And yeah, if you have any other policy ideas, shoot them our way, fill out that survey. If you just want to talk, we're always here to collaborate. And thank you all. Bye.